rusty right now. It's early as hell in the morning. Y'all don't be looking all good as hell and y'all wake up in the morning either. So don't sit here and act like I'm the only one. But I'm going to get myself somewhat together. So I'm going to let this ride for a little bit. So give me a minute while I get my setup together. This is my first live. I got some good gems I'm going to give you guys early in the morning because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about my past. And I'm always reflecting, as you guys know. If you check out any of my videos, I'm always just looking at life, man, you know? And if you don't look at your life and understand, the things that you've been through, you can't properly plan where you're going. So I like to look at my life because I'm going somewhere. And I hope you guys look at your life as if you're going somewhere and not staying still, But let me put on that hat because I'm looking crazy, boy. I'm looking real rough right now. Y'all probably looking like this guy's struggling, All my Stranger Things pants and shit. All right, anyway, let me just get to it, because I know y'all want to hear it. Y'all want to get to it. I'm going to get to it. So I titled this video, Why Being Broke, My Disadvantages, and How They Became My Advantages. I started thinking about some of my old friends, and I call them old friends because they are old friends, people that I knew in my past. I'm not going to reference them directly, but I'm going to use them as an example, and I'm going to use their families as an example of how I was able to navigate in the world by watching them. Now, I grew up broke as hell. Not like that anymore, but I grew up broke as hell. I grew up poor as hell in Detroit. And a lot of my friends had two-parent households. They had their mother, they had their father, they had resources. Now, I had a good mother. She worked hard. She was the lunch lady. She worked at Burbank Middle School. Now, her disadvantage is she got paid once a month from the school board, and she didn't get paid really shit within that month that she was working there. And we used to even eat the free lunches that she used to bring home, the little pizzas and shit, the square pizzas. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about if you grew up in the 90s or the late 2000s, early 2000s. Again, that was how we lived. That was how we ate. That was, you know, how we survived. We basically grew up off of food stamps. Food stamps was our daddy, because our daddy wasn't in the house. But that's a whole nother subject. I'm just going to talk about my upbringing. So, um, I used to go to my friend's house, and a lot of the friends that I grew up around, they had two-parent household, they had resources. They was reckless as fuck. They was always into some shit. They was always going in and out of jail. They was always doing the most. They was doing the things that they really didn't have to do. They didn't have to um, rob somebody. They didn't have to steal. They didn't have to do anything except just do what they needed to do as far as school. Um, they had resources. Their mother giving them cars. Their mother giving them, you know, a good place to stay, stability. And I didn't have any of that. And because they had all of these advantages and they had all of these things and they had somebody who was willing to bail them out, put their house up for collateral, it allowed them to be reckless in life because they knew somebody was going to come and bail them out. They knew that they had somebody around that was going to help them out. They knew that their mother was going to put their house up for bail money for them as collateral. And they knew these things, so it allowed them to operate in the world as if life didn't have any consequences. And I didn't have that, advantage. I knew because I tried to be on some street shit when I was younger, and I found this out the hard way, which was a great way because this happened when I was a juvenile. I got caught up one time carrying a concealed weapon. At 16 years old, and I got caught up in some shit. And this was juvenile. I was about to turn 17, and they was trying to try me as an adult. A lot of times with these with the system, and it wasn't like I did anything. I just got caught with the concealed weapon. I wasn't doing anything crazy. attempting to do anything. But they was trying to charge me as an adult for carrying a concealed weapon. And what I learned, because I was in jail for about a month, actually in juvenile detention for a month. And what I learned in that 1 month is that when you broke, you can't do the same kind of shit that they can do. Because my family was broke. I didn't have the advantage of my mother getting me out of jail in any capacity because she couldn't afford it. I didn't have the advantage of getting a lawyer that could have fought this case because I couldn't afford it. My family couldn't afford it. I didn't have anyone coming to see me in that month except my mother. And the look on her face in disappointment was the worst. My mother never knew how to drive, so when she came to my court trials, I think I had like 3 court trials within that month. It was probably a little bit more than a month. I'm going to say about 2 months, 2 to 3 months. She would have to catch the bus to WCJD, WCJDF. I think it was WCJDF, Wayne County Juvenile Detention Facility. Yeah. She was the only person there. She had to catch the bus in the fucking heat. She had to catch the bus around the weirdos and be around the weirdos because her dumbass son got caught up in some shit. Like, that was the worst feeling for me because I grew up with the mentality of taking care of my mother and being the man of the house. That's not a good responsibility for a young child to have because I was a child. I wasn't a young man. I was in development of becoming a man. But as a child, I've always had that responsibility because I was the oldest of 5. And because I didn't have those advantages that they had, it was a lesson that was learned that all I had was really my mother and myself. Really myself, because my mother, she could be supportive of me, but she couldn't help me if I made stupid decisions. So what I do tell my daughter all the time, I tell her, even to this day, I don't need you to make the best decision. I need you to make smart decisions because in life, you're going to make mistakes. Mistakes sometimes can be a benefit to you if you know how to, number one, learn from them, and then number two, not make the same mistake twice. And I learned from those mistakes. The friends that I had, they continue to make those mistakes because they had those advantages, those people behind them that continuously build them out. But that individual never changed their habits and the things that they were doing. They continuously continued to move forward towards a path of destruction, and they destroyed their lives in the process. So fast forward 20 years, you know, being the young, poor, bummy guy that used to come over a lot of their houses to eat, you know, and they never looked down on me. I'm not knocking any of them at all. I'm just using this as an analogy. The one who came from the most lack was, you know, turned himself around to be the one who had the most abundance because he didn't have the advantages that they had. They had 2-parent households, they had resources, they had a beautiful home, they had a refrigerator full of food, they had clean clothes on their back, they had everything that they needed. The path was laid out for them to have a comfortable life. But a lot of times when you give your kids everything, you give them a crutch. A lot of times when the mothers, if they're active in their sons' lives, they like to overcompensate for that son. They like to basically castrate him from his masculinity. Sometimes he got to go out in the wilderness and hunt on his own. Sometimes he have to suffer some kind of loss or devastation on his own to understand that all he has is his own. Sometimes he has to I don't want to say this word. I hate to use it, but sometimes he does have to fail, you know, and understand that all he has is himself. He can't walk in this world thinking that he has his mother and his father to bail him out of his situation due to his poor decision making. He has to make smart decisions. It won't always be the best, but it has to be something that you think about before you do it. And I think a lot of brothers these days, they're losing their freedom because they're not thinking about the decisions that they make. They're not making smart decisions. I'm going to take it off of the subject of my friends or whatever, and I'm going to push it towards what I see in the youth today. You know, a lot of them are making decisions, but not thinking about the consequences of those decisions. You know, I see a lot of young brothers that want to represent a lot of gangs. And today, it's not like the 90s. You know, this is what I observe. A lot of the music, they're promoting gangs, they're promoting being part of a gang. But these rappers that they see, as extravagant as they look, they really ain't part of that life. They don't really have to even be really part of that life. All they have to do is rap about it. And another thing is, it's a thing called Rico. They're handing out easily. Talking about good 15 to 20 years of your life gone just from being associated with an organization in any capacity. Then it's not like how we were when we were younger. We didn't have this thing called social media. So a lot of times the kids, when they do crazy shit, reckless shit, especially if you're doing it for the clout, they're on here. They're on social media. They're bragging about it. They're bragging about their guns. They're bragging about things that they done. A lot of times they snitch on themselves. For some reason, they think that these guys aren't watching their social media. They don't think the alphabet boys ain't watching their social media. For some reason, they don't think that. Especially if you making a little noise out there. You don't think that. You don't think that. You don't think your enemies, aren't smart enough to snitch on you. Because everybody's snitching. There's cameras everywhere too, man. It is cameras everywhere. Everywhere. We didn't have those issues. You got cameras on your doorbell. You got cameras at the traffic light, stoplight. You got cameras on your ATM. Shit, you got your phone pinging off of towers. it's a whole nother game that we dealing with these days. And then you associated with a gang. Like our prisons are getting so packed full of young men whose lives are gone. Gone. Imagine how life is gonna look 20 years from now. Right now we got the basically the beginning of AI. You talking about 20 years, you'll lose. Your mother is old now. You may not even get a chance to hug her anymore because you want to be something that you really didn't have to be. You had all of these advantages, but these advantages turned out to be disadvantages because you knew that you had somebody that was going to bail you out. But a lot of people, like myself, who came up that didn't have those advantages, understood that, hey, I can't make these careless mistakes because I have a lot more to lose. I don't have those resources that are going to come and bail me out of my circumstance or situation. I don't know why my dog making that noise. This is loud as hell. might go in there and be like, tell her to leave this, turn that shit down, whatever she's doing. But that's, the point that I'm making. My disadvantages overall became my advantages because I knew I couldn't do the shit that they could do. And it pushed me to be a better individual in society. It put me in a position where I'm able to, it's early in the morning, I'm able to take her to school, my daughter. I'm able to see her grow up into a young lady. I'm not in somebody's jail. I'm not cooking no tacos on a makeshift stove. I'm not dealing with Securus or none of that shit. And I feel bad for those brothers and the mothers that have to go through that with their sons. They gotta go through spending money on probation officers. They gotta go through, spending money on lawyers for appeals and shit. They gotta go through looking at their sons being locked in and locked away. This gotta go through, send hundreds of thousands of dollars to Securus. Like, now you really a baby, because now she gotta take care of you. And it's like, man, like, even with those brothers, like, you can be gangsta all you want to, but when you in there, you gotta spread them and cough every day. And you left your family vulnerable. Your family is vulnerable out in the streets. That's messed up. Anything can happen. There ain't nothing you can do. So I urge brothers out there, humbly, make smart decisions, man. If you ain't gotta be involved in no street shit, don't be involved in that street shit. That era is gone. Raising Canaan era is gone. That power shit that y'all see on TV, that shit is fugazi as hell. Cause if they can catch me speeding and hit my license plate and send me a ticket in the mail, what you think they gonna do if it's some real shit going on? What you think they can do? You don't think they can see your face? It's cameras everywhere now. It ain't the same time. So if you wanna do something, play at your own risk, man. I'm just telling you. And being associated with gangs ain't the way to go. You talking about 20 years of your life gone. I want you guys to live an abundant life. I want you guys to be out here with all these beautiful women. A lot of these women going gay because there ain't no men out here. I might get a little flack for saying that, but it's none. There's not that many men out here. For one man to have one woman, that's a thing in the past now. But that's a whole nother subject. We'll talk about that later on. But anyway, this video one, Black Indian AI. You guys know I do tech, but I more so talk more about lifestyle, mindset, and abundant thinking. Because before you can go and take these type of courses, I want you to have an abundant mind. So you guys be blessed out there. Talk to you soon. Peace.